my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. So today's video is going to be my January and February kind of wrap up, but including my current reads. I have had a very weird couple of reading months. Basically, if you guys have been watching my videos, you guys will know that I did a January TBR, kind of TBR jar prompts picks my January reads, and then I also did one for February. Now, as much as I kind of loved doing those, I found that my reading habits kind of changed quite drastically, and I felt so much pressure to kind of complete that TBR that was set for me, which shouldn't be the case, as everybody should enjoy what they read. They should never feel forced to kind of pick up a book or anything like that. So although I really like the concept of having a TBR, I'm not gonna lie, everything that was on my February TBR, I have not read. I'm just gonna put it out there. I have not read, I've not picked up any of the books that were on that TBR. Partially my fault because I filmed that video so far into February. Like, if I am to do a TBR, it should kind of be at the beginning of the month, which my next one will be. So I'm hoping March will be a bit of a better kind of reading month. February has been really slack for me, and I have only completed 2 books. Bearing in mind, I just want to say that I am filming this video on the 20th of February. Granted, we still have 9 more days left of the month, but I just have a feeling, I know next week for me is going to be so busy that I'm just not going to have a chance to potentially even finish a book. So the books that I am currently reading, I thought I'd share, and they may feature again in my March and April wrap up. I'm not sure yet, but it all depends on kind of how I get everything read sort of this week and next week. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of make that clear, just so that everybody doesn't think that I am reading all of these books. My typical reading month usually consists of like 4 or 5 books. I'm trying to get it to 5 books, so in 2 months I can complete 10 books, but we will see how that goes. So if you guys have watched those videos, then you guys will know some of the books or recognise some of the books that are in here, but I thought I'd give kind of this video the chance to explain my thoughts and my opinions and my reviews. Also, if you want to see kind of more in-depth reviews, then definitely go check out my Instagram, which is at @bookswithluce. It's always linked in the description box down below, so you can go check it out. But I think I have rambled long enough. I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, don't forget to give the video a big old thumbs up, subscribe down below, and don't forget to turn on the little post notification bell so you're notified every time I upload a new video. And with that said, let's just jump straight into the video. One thing that definitely did change for me over the last couple of months is having access to a wonderful thing called a Kindle. My lovely boyfriend Owen bought me a Kindle for Christmas, which I am honestly so over the moon with. I'm still loving it, and we are sort of almost 3 months into the year, which is kind of crazy to say, but I am loving it. It's just so practical to kind of pop in my bag, take everywhere with me, and at the moment I am currently reading like 3 different books on the go, but I will come to those towards the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. But as for the actual books that I read, these are the ones. I did also end up reading Kindle books as well. I'm gonna go on to my Goodreads. By the way, my Goodreads is also linked in the description box down below if you want to go check it out. That's where I kind of track all of my books. So the first book that I read for January 2024 was The Inmate by Frieda McFadden. One of my reading goals for this year was to actually read as much of her backlist as possible. I ended up reading 3 of her books last year, and there's just something about her books that make me want to go back for more. I love them. I think they are so gripping, and they are psychological thrillers if anybody is unaware, and she just has this way of making a plot twist unbelievable. unbelievable. It is crazy the amount of times that my jaw has physically dropped from reading her books is crazy. First book for 2024 was The Inmate. I quite literally completed this in a day. I completed this book on the 1st of January. Crazy, I know. So I felt like that set me up for a really good reading month, which all in all it did. But I did DNF 2 books, which I will get onto those in a minute. But I ended up rating The Inmate 4 stars, which I felt like was a really strong rating. I also am being a little bit more picky with how I rate my books. So if you guys would like to see how I rate my books, I can definitely do like a TikTok video on that, or like kind of put it in a vlog or whatever. Let me know in the comments below if that's something that you'd like to see. 4 stars. This book was exceptional. I think it was definitely at this point one of my favourite Frieda McFadden books I've ever read. She just had a way with this book. Like, if anybody has read The Inmate, this book was just insane, and I honestly did not see the ending come at all. Like, the last 3 pages, the epilogue of this book is jaw-dropping, and like there's a part of me that wants to see a second book from this. I doubt that will happen, but oh my god, so good. So yeah, so we started the year off really strong. Loved it. I then finished my first physical book of the year, which was All Our Hidden Gifts by Caroline O'Donoghue. This was a really weird book. I had ordered these books off of a whim, like on Vinted, and they are actually a trilogy. I kind of liked the initial concept of this book, where we follow Maeve Chambers, who is a student, and she basically goes into like a detention. This is set in Ireland. She goes to her detention because she gets in trouble, and she's clearing out this kind of like old storeroom sort of thing, and she finds these tarot cards, which to me, I'm not really into that kind of stuff, so I didn't think this whole story was gonna revolve around it. Or no, that's a lie. I obviously, because it literally says on the back about kind of like tarot cards and things like that, and it also talks about her ex-best friend Lily, who essentially, ex-best friend, they're no longer friends, and she basically gets a reading done from her old friend Maeve, and there is this one card called the housekeeper card that essentially kind of makes everything weird, and the next day Lily disappears. I don't know if I've explained that in the best way possible, but I'm also not going to give too much away. I did end up rating this book 3 stars. I liked it. I definitely finished it. I would probably finish the series, but it just wasn't one of those books that I found absolutely riveting. I believe this is Caroline O'Donoghue's first YA series. Beforehand, I think she does more kind of like adult fiction. Never read any of her work before, but to me, this just wasn't quite my thing. I also really struggled with what genre this book actually was. We had a lot of real life elements in it, but then we had kind of some fantasy elements. There was kind of like witchcraft kind of embedded into this. So I really struggle going into a book without knowing the genre of it, and I just felt like this was one of those books. This happened to me actually when I read Rivers of London. I went into the book kind of not knowing what genre it was. Obviously it wasn't very obvious to me, and I really struggled with it, and this kind of happened with this book. But I've kind of heard mixed reviews about this book. Some people say that it was really good. Some people kind of caught the grasp of it. The story in itself was quite intriguing. I think what kind of sold it to me was the fact that her best friend had gone missing and she was trying to find her, but there was just a lot of kind of like witchcraft elements in it that I didn't particularly enjoy. It's not really the type of genre that I would on a normal day-to-day basis kind of pick up. It's just not really my vibe. But then again, fantasy, I'm very picky with my type of fantasy. and I've actually not found a fantasy book that I'm fully invested in yet, so unfortunately that wasn't the book that was going to get me into fantasy. I then read Is at the Morisaki Bookshop by Satoshi Yagisawa. I'm so sorry about mispronouncing this. This book was so intriguing and I actually really loved it, coming to think about it again. I think I initially rated this, I think I ended up rating it 3 stars. Now I just want to say 3 stars isn't a bad rating. As I said, I'm trying to be a lot more picky with my star ratings, and for 5 stars to be my absolute all in all favourite books, which have a very dedicated spot in my room. The 2 shelves that sit above my bed are like my favourite shelf, and they're the ones that have 5 stars. I am trying to be a lot more picky with my star ratings. 3 star is not bad, and 3 stars for a book that isn't even 200 pages long I think is also very strong. There obviously wasn't a big sense of storytelling in this. What I loved was it was set in Japan. We followed this character. She was working a corporate job in Tokyo and she was seeing a guy and she was in love, and then all of a sudden this guy basically turns around and says to her that he is marrying somebody else, which for her was just like the be all and end all, and she ends up quitting her day job, going to see her uncle at the Morisaki Bookshop. He's the one that owns this bookshop, and she essentially lives in this bookshop for free because there's like a sort of a flat upstairs, and she has known this uncle obviously so kind of like her whole life. She used to have quite a close relationship with him, and he used to be married, and it kind of takes you through the story of how he got into the Morisaki Bookshop, the kind of meaning behind the Morisaki Bookshop, and we kind of find her, you know, she absolutely hates reading. She's like basically never read a book in her entire life, and all of a sudden she finds herself in this bookshop, working in this bookshop, and this kind of notorious road or this street in Japan has hundreds of different bookshops on it, and the Morisaki being one of them. And we essentially kind of just see this development in her character, kind of going from not reading a book at all to kind of absolutely falling in love with reading. And I suppose the kind of message behind this book is that reading can truly bring you so much joy and hope in life, and that you can find so many people who enjoy the same thing as you. It can bring you relationships, and there's just something so special about the message behind this book that I just love, and I urge every single one of you to pick this book up. Definitely pulls on your heartstrings a little bit. I just loved the overall concept of this book. I've definitely heard mixed reviews about it, most of them being fairly positive, and I'm definitely on that bandwagon of loving it. I think it was definitely worth a read. I'd seen it sort of like in my local Waterstones, and I was like, do you know what, I'm just gonna pick it up. I'm very happy that I did pick this one up, and I think I kind of ended up rating it like a 3.75, so overall a quite strong rating on my behalf. I then picked up, now I can just hear the kind of people coming at me right now, like I can just hear it, I can see it, I can hear it, and I'm sorry. Belladonna by Adalyn Grace was a hard DNF for me. I really didn't enjoy it. Essentially I got about 100 and, oh I don't know actually, I got about 150 pages in I think, and essentially I was really struggling to actually get into the book. I know so many people who have loved this book and have said that it's the best book they've ever read, that it's definitely like a 5-star read and like all this sort of stuff. And you know, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, like if people recommend me books, I'm gonna jump on it, I'm gonna buy them, and I'm gonna see them for myself. Will I ever pick this up again? Probably not. I really struggled to get into it, and so what I did was I went to watch some spoiler-free reviews. Sometimes I find that that helps to kind of know that I'm not the only one that felt like that. And essentially what people were telling me was the kind of concept of the story ended up being something that I just knew I wouldn't enjoy. I was so looking forward to this book purely because when I was in Waterstones, when I bought it, the bookseller had told me that this was kind of something that Tim Burton should direct, which I can fully see. Like if anybody has read this book, you can kind of understand that. It's definitely kind of got your gothic fantasy, which isn't typically my favourite thing to read about. I'm not really into that kind of like darkish kind of gothic-y environment. It's not really up my It's not really my vibe. And essentially when I found out this piece of information kind of in regards to the relationship that Signifaro has, I just was like, this just isn't something that I want to read. And I was almost just giving myself the chore of trying to finish this book purely because of what people had said and said that it was their favourite book. And I'm sitting here right now and telling you that if you do not enjoy a book, why are you forcing yourself to read it? I was such a victim of this when I first started getting back into reading, of going, I have to finish this book, and all of them were like, if I'd seen somebody rate 5 stars and I hadn't personally enjoyed it, I would still rate it 5 stars. So for me, this is so backwards. I have, I think, a little bit more of a healthier approach to kind of reading and picking and choosing what my DNFs are. I have 2 categories. I have a hard DNF and a soft DNF. Hard DNF being, I probably will never go back to this book. This book can leave my shelf. Goodbye, thank you very much for your time. Soft DNF being, it just wasn't the right time for me to pick up that book, but I will sort of come back to it another day. And this one being a hard DNF. I just don't think that I will kind of ever get into it. Still have it on my Kindle, so in that sense, if I wanted to pick it up again, it's on my Kindle, but I doubt it, purely because there are so many other books on my shelf that I just think that I'd enjoy so much more than that type of book. And if people know what I'm talking about, and if people have read Belladonna, then by all means, like, you know, and if you love it, I'm so sorry. Personally, for me, it wasn't the right book. I then read The Feast and actually soft DNF'd it. I didn't finish it. Also, this is a kind of point of conversation where I don't really know what to tell people, but like, I count my DNFs as having read them. I know some people don't because you haven't essentially finished it, but I've still taken the time to at least read halfway through. This book is The Feast by Margaret Kennedy. I don't know if I already said that or not. I essentially was sold this book with the premise that this was a murder mystery. It is not. It is a literary fiction. This was another case of going into the book blind and not knowing the genre, which I just cannot grasp at all. I want to know what type of book I'm reading, whether it's a romance, a mystery, a classic, a fantasy, like whatever it may be. I want to know what book I'm reading. This book just gave me a false pretense. I just didn't vibe with it. I think it was purely because I wasn't in the right sort of headspace for it. It's definitely Old English, which isn't my expertise, I can't lie, and I'm not necessarily very great at reading Old English. The kind of premise of this book is really intriguing. It's set in Cornwall in 1947, and essentially this hotel called Penderzac Manor collapses. We sort of follow this timeline of all these characters who have stayed at this hotel. That was another thing. There were so many characters within this book that trying to keep a memory of who was who and who did what and who said what was very, very confusing, and I just really didn't grasp that. And I think genuinely that just put me off, kind of put me in a bit of a slump. Essentially, I just didn't really enjoy it. It is a soft DNF because I feel like I would like to eventually know what happened, but it's just not the right book for me at this current stage. So that is a book that I will most likely come back to. But as I said, I've probably got other books on my shelf that I kind of want to read first. Next up, we then read Before We Were Innocent by Ella Berman. This book was initially a book that I just kind of like clicked on my Kindle randomly. Like, it was on my Kindle Unlimited subscription. I was like, oh, okay, let's just see what this is all about. And then I saw that Reese Witherspoon had chosen this for her book club, and she'd said that it was a really, really good book. This book, all in all, was actually quite interesting. It was essentially a coming of age novel and a mystery kind of all tied together, but the way that it was formatted was very, very different. We essentially knew straight away that there was kind of like a murder, but not really a murder. Like, it was like somebody had died. Essentially, we follow 3 girls who go away on holiday together because it's their last summer before they all go away to college, and one of them has a holiday home in Greece. Now, they're all from Calabasas in America, so they're kind of quite up there with the, you know, they're quite rich and all that sort of stuff. And we sort of follow a past and present timeline, which is kind of one of my favorite kind of books to follow and read. So I essentially really did enjoy it. I think halfway through it felt a little bit flat for me, just a little bit, and then it sort of picked up again. But overall, I think I rated this a 4-star. I might bump it down to a 3.75 because I just felt like I haven't really thought about it since. I do typically like to sit on my reviews a little bit before I kind of give a star rating. Like, I'll kind of give like an initial one, and then if I don't really think about it again or anything, then I'll sort of like bump it down, or if I do think about it all the time, then I might bump it up. But it was good. I'd say it's worth a read. Definitely kind of had that really nice kind of holiday vibe, and it was sort of mysterious and all this sort of stuff, which I thought was quite gripping. Personally for me, as I said, kind of halfway through it fell a little bit flat, so I was kind of just reading like almost 400 pages worth of kind of waffle, and then all of a sudden it was kind of like such and such happened, and it ended up being quite good, which is what I enjoyed. And lastly, I read Beach Read by Emily Henry. I am so happy that I finally read an Emily Henry book, purely because everybody loves Emily Henry. I feel like there is very little people on this planet that don't like Emily Henry and her writing. Now, I think I've mentioned this before, but an adult romance isn't really my thing. I don't just really kind of enjoy sitting and reading pure like smut, basically, or spice. Like, it's not really my street. However, the first 3 pages of this book I started tabbing, and we have now a very tabbed book. I really enjoyed this. I ended up rating it a 4-star. It was just something that was, I don't know, there was like a rom-com, and there was an actual kind of heartfelt story that followed behind this, which I think a lot of people have said that the other ones don't really kind of reflect that, or they're kind of purely just romance. Whereas this kind of had a mix of everything that I enjoyed, and I overall really loved it. I kind of blended in well with the characters. I just felt like I was in the story, which is something that if a story does that to me, then I love, and it will instantly get a high rating. It did, I can't lie, fall just a little bit flat for me about halfway through. I had a very big love-hate relationship with Gus. If you read this, please let me know, because I felt like at one minute I was like, yeah, he's great, and then the next minute I was like, he's a red flag. Like, I just couldn't quite pinpoint my feelings for him. Whereas January, I loved her. I think she was brilliant, and especially kind of the life that she had been through, and all of a sudden kind of having to change her whole life was quite drastic. And I just love the concept of them both being writers and kind of college rivals, and them having to kind of swap genres and write to see who gets published first. I thought there was just something so unique about that, and I just loved that kind of relationship and seeing that relationship blossom. If you haven't read Beach Read, I urge you to go pick this up right now. As I said, it's kind of got your there are like cringe moments in it, I'm not gonna lie, but all in all, I genuinely really enjoyed this book. I will continue to read Emily Henry's books. I did actually, a couple years ago, start reading You and Me on Vacation, and I'd actually DNF'd it. It was obviously a soft DNF because I've bought the book since. I kind of put me off reading Emily Henry, and then I picked this up because of my January TBR, and I loved it, and I'm so glad that I have finally read an Emily Henry book. Will this be my favourite? I don't know, but I'm very much looking forward to reading the other books, Happy Place, and also her new book, Funny Story, which is coming out soon. So those are all the books that I have read. I thought I would now take you guys through the books that I'm currently reading. I am in my kind of reading multiple books at once era. Is that a toxic trait? I'm not 100% sure. I essentially had started reading The Sanatorium by Sarah Pearse again. This is a reread for me. If you guys have been following me for a while, you'll know this is one of my favourite books ever. Ever. I love her series of Ellen Warner. I love her writing. She is the queen of writing an atmospheric thriller. Just gonna put that out there. If you have not read this, please pick it up. I love it. I essentially had read the paperback like a couple of years ago, and I've just raved about it ever since. And then I got the hardback version of The Retreat when that came out, and I essentially then got the paperback version of The Retreat, and I was like, do you know what, we're gonna have to make the collection. So I had to get the hardback version of the Sanatorium, which I found for £3 on Amazon. It's a pre-loved one, but it's got the sprayed edges, which just matches perfectly with the writing. And I was like, do you know what, we're gonna read it again. So I'm currently 222 pages in this, and I'm still loving it. It's just, there's something about her writing. It's super fast paced. The chapters are literally like 2 pages long. You can literally get through this so quickly. I urge every single person who is looking for a good thriller, or if you're getting into that genre, to pick this up because it's brilliant. I'm also kind of rereading the series because her new book The Wilds is coming out in June, I believe, which I'm also so excited for, so stay tuned for my thoughts and opinions on that one. But yeah, so that is my first book that I am reading. I then am reading The Teacher by Frieda McFadden. This is her new release. I am 55 pages in, which I haven't really got any thoughts on yet. I've heard, once again, kind of mixed reviews about it. And I'm also reading an ARC, which is This Is Fine by Poorna Bell, which will be released, I believe, in around April time, I want to say. I will leave the exact date on screen, but I'm currently reading that as well. They're the two kind of Kindle books that I'm swapping between. And one that, this is very kind of like different for me, that I wouldn't necessarily pick up, but I'm also reading How the Pill Changes Everything by Dr. Sarah E. Hill. I've seen so many women read this book and say how their thought process has changed completely since reading this book whilst being on the pill. And I just wanted to have a little bit more insight into what I'm putting into my body, basically. I think I can speak for a lot of women when they say that you go to the doctors, you get prescribed being on the pill, and then all of a sudden it's like 5 years later and your body is changing and you just kind of don't really know why. I feel like I personally never got an explanation for, you know, the pill and kind of what it was. It was literally quite given to me, kind of like, here you go, this is what you take every day, at the same time, enjoy, kind of thing. And I just wanted to kind of understand truly what the pill does. And I've heard so many people talk about this book, saying how incredible it is, how insightful it was, how enlightening it was. People have truly made the decision to either stay on the pill or come off the pill after kind of like personal experiences and things. And this was kind of the one that was true to, you know, kind of scientific matters and stuff, which I think helps. So I picked this up. And I only started it last night, so I'm about 15 pages in, but super insightful. I am definitely trying to read a lot more kind of like non-fiction books and stuff as well. That was kind of one of my other reading goals for the year, so I'm very much looking forward to reading those. So I currently have 4 books that I'm currently reading. But yeah, so that is everything that I have read or I am reading. So that is my video for today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys would like to see, as I said, any kind of further reviews into the books, then don't forget to give me a follow over on my Instagram. It's always linked in the description box down below. But with that said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to give the video a big old thumbs up, subscribe down below, and don't forget to turn on the little post notification bell so you're notified every time I upload a new video. And with that said, I will see you guys in next week's video. Bye guys!